You ever feel like nothing good was ever gonna happen to you?
Yeah, and nothing did. So what?
Look away, look away, look away, Dixieland, 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 oh, Dixieland. Praise God, rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the new.
All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to Dixieland, the Proletariat. We're going to talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Make sure to like us on social media at Dixieland, the Proletariat, or find all of our links on our link tree at linktree/.prol. That's DOT-PROL, where if you want to give your wages to a bunch of rednecks, you'll find a link to our Patreon. We got a lot of cool stuff to give you, including CDs, stickers, a cookbook, Discord server, and exclusive episodes. We also have a Spotify playlist with some great artists you also check out, as well as our merch store. This podcast is brought to you by contractional monogamy, not being able to afford therapy, living at home, beta blockers, Kaiser pushing white men in the swamps, Nelson's love life, Tyler's hiatus, and Mark's laughter, which brings joy to the masses, and the feeling of impending doom that has become normalized in the U.S. Shout out to a new Patreon subscriber, Matthew. A monthly Patreon surplus goes to groups that are run by and are help marginalized people directly. As always, I'm Nelson with...
And I'm pissed off.
I'm tired.
And our guest this evening is...
I'm so fucking tired, man.
It's
The abortion lady.
It's the abortion lady, the one ever emergency abortion episode because everything's gone to shit. Anyway,
Everything's fucked.
Real quick, people have been asking. Tyler's hiatus is because they busted that moonshine still down in Pike County, and he's in jail right now. So we're gonna bail him out of the Patreon funds, and he'll be back soon. So that was just a little side note for everyone that's been wondering where Tyler is. He got busted for something that people stopped getting busted for like 70 years ago. Anyway, Mia, go ahead and take it, because I know you got a lot to say. I guess we wanted to do this one to give you kind of a everyone put out like their episodes like the day after, but I feel like there was a lot of stuff that we all now know that happened between then and now, and also we wanted to give you some time to relax, try to relax some space, because we figured
say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, we figured your phone like exploded with all the messages, because like just the amount of messages that I've gotten from people trying to see what's going on, I know yours are like 1,000 million times worse. So everything that you want to tell people about what the fuck is going on and what the fuck people can do, and just whatever you want to say, the floor is yours. So we're going to sit back and relax and listen.
So yes, my phone exploded about 2 minutes after we figured out we had Dobbs 2 weeks ago, which you'll never convince me was only 2 weeks ago, because it feels like 2 fucking years. My phone has not stopped because the powerhouse has been in existence since 2015, and we had the 2019 ban, which famously Alabama was the first state to quote ban abortion in the United States. These phone calls don't include just US media, they are nationwide media. I literally just got off the phone with Australian media to talk to you guys. So it is Friday after 6 o'clock. My day has still not ended yet. And I have been at it since about 6:30 this morning. So I am tired as fuck, and I am mad as fucking hell.
Woo!
Fun times, right? Fun times.
I guess the first question that I've gotten is what happened? So I know we've all been shouting, the people that have known this, you've been shouting the loudest, obviously, because you knew this was coming. But for a long, you've been talking about this for years. So what the fuck happened? I guess what is Dobbs like? What is now happened? What is the state of what happened? I guess is the question.
What happened was the former guy put a bunch of people on the Supreme Court that had no respect for our deeply rooted issues, which they said abortion was not. And it is, it has been since forever, before America was ever created. The But Dobbs was a 15-week case out of Mississippi, meaning Mississippi wanted to ban abortion at 15 weeks. And their case was taken up by Supreme Court in a very weird way that usually never happens. After Amy Coney Barrett was appointed, and here we the fuck are. What's not included in Dobbs is that most southern states have trigger bans, meaning that they either previously had a ban pre-Roe, or like Alabama, they passed one in 2017, 2018 that stated that once Roe or Casey, or a combination of the two, fell, that abortion would be immediately illegal. Alabama just happens to be one of those states that it's illegal in terrible ways, with very, very, very extremely narrow exceptions, only for the life of the pregnant person. There are no exceptions for rape and incest, and it shouldn't fucking matter because we shouldn't be here anyways. But here we are. We are in a post-Roe world that I've seen coming for the past 4 years, at least 3 to 4 years. And I've screamed my head off about it, and people thought I was crazy or I was overreacting, or what do you expect? It's Alabama. And here we are. Here we are, because y'all have no idea what is coming. And I am not being alarmist. They have already told you what is coming.
Mm-hmm.
They are coming for your birth control. They are coming for the right to marry who you love. They are coming for Lawrence versus Texas, which Lawrence versus Texas gives adults that consent the right to do whatever they wish in their bedroom. Let that sink in.
Mm-hmm.
They have basically obliterated the 14th Amendment, which is your right to privacy. And then in doing so, it also allows states like Alabama to do what they're doing now, which is muzzling my First Amendment right to tell people where the fuck to go. Right now, I cannot tell people what clinics to go to. I cannot tell them what cities to go to. I can only tell them the states where abortion is legal.
That's been a thing on TikTok and a bunch of other social media platforms, trying to explain to people like that's what the law says, and it's not hyperbole. Like the head of the Alabama Democratic Party like came out and said that on Twitter. Like, no, this is the law. Like, they can arrest people and throw you in jail for just helping people get one. So like I guess what does the Alabama law say specific? Because there's been some thing like people are like, oh, but they can do this and they can do that, and I just want you to just, if you could, just like what is in the Alabama law, who can get prosecuted, and like how bad are the penalties?
We need to put up the link to Chris England's Twitter post about this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I'm not an attorney, even though I have really fucking expensive goddamn attorneys that I shouldn't have to have. I've never had a criminal attorney in my life, and I have the best one in Alabama right now. Basically, because DAs in different counties in Alabama can decide if they're going to prosecute or not on these cases, it's generally left up to DAs to decide what's best in their county. A couple of them have come out and said that they would not prosecute people for, quote, aiding and abetting. And the aiding and abetting language in the 2019 ban, otherwise known as the Human Life Protection Act, is very vague. It supposedly only criminalizes doctors, but it does not. Mm-hmm. And you would have to go to Chris England's page to understand what I'm talking about, because it's Alabama. It's very convoluted. And what adds to that convolution into it is Alabama also has a very strange conspiracy law. I've been told this kind of conspiracy law doesn't exist in even like Mississippi or even Texas. But if you tell someone how to access something that is illegal here, but they don't access it here, but access it in a state where it's legal, because the conspiracy took place in Alabama, and I use the word conspiracy very loosely in this context, you can be charged. under conspiracy laws, like they did the mob, for instance.
Whoa, hey, whoa.
I knew that was going to get that out of you. We needed that moment of levity.
Hey, I'm gonna start charging
Because-
people with RICO crimes or RICO charges.
Right, and it's that serious. When I say that I have very fucking expensive attorneys, I mean it.
Yeah.
And they are without a doubt protecting a lot of people right now from going to jail, namely me and some other folks.
Yeah.
Because as people who are abortion advocates in Alabama, we're not generally liked by the people in power, and we know we have eyes on us. So right now in Alabama, if you came to me while I was at the powerhouse and you asked me, how can I get an abortion? I have a sheet of paper that my lawyer approves and says, this is what you can say. And on it is, for continuing your pregnancy, this is some information. For choices for adoption, here's some information. Here are the states that abortion is legal in. And it's a very, narrow list, because most people realistically from Alabama are not going to be able to get to like Washington State or California. So it's a very short list, but it's also annotated with trigger bans. So I had to cross Mississippi off the list yesterday, because even though the Mississippi case is Dobbs and it was a 15-week ban, like I said, they had a trigger law that kind of superseded their 15-week ban. So as of yesterday, abortion is completely illegal in the state of Mississippi.
And that seems to be another really confusing thing. Well, one, to get back really to the aiding and abetting thing real quick. So looking at I remember I saved what Chris posted, and I made a TikTok video about it and going over the conspiracy and the aiding and abetting. Like I'm not a lawyer, I hadn't passed the bar or anything, but like from what just the language that it uses and the fact that the law goes after people that like doctors and people that perform the abortions, but then it has like the aiding and abetting part. People are like, oh, what about the whole thing on social media now is like, just come camping in my state, blah blah blah. And like what people have to realize is that maybe in theory, technically, if you somehow got in direct contact with somebody who needed an abortion and they didn't tell anybody and they flew out and did their thing or drove there, did their thing and came back, maybe people would be okay. But if that person told anybody, if they mentioned, you're fucked. Yeah. And then also
you are completely fucked.
And then also I could totally see, because you made a good point. It's county by county with DAs. And like you said, it takes one like overzealous DA and judge to start throwing people in jail for this shit. Is that they could charge, if they really wanted to, in theory, charge the person who wants to get an abortion with conspiracy to commit a crime, because they've talked about it and planned it in the state of Alabama. So it's not even, it's this whole like blue state liberal thing, like come camping with me. It's putting people at risk to go to what I said. I told somebody it puts you at risk to potentially go to the worst prison system in the nation. Like Alabama's prison system is the worst in the nation. And,
yes, and has DOJ hanging over its head right now.
Yeah. And another thing that like I brought up, like just the funny haha with the mafia thing, is like, and someone else brought this up on TikTok, is like, if like people are going to start like turning people in the second that like a police officer or fed or whoever knocks on your door and is like, hey, you need to come down to the station with us because we have reason to believe that, one of your friends did whatever. And people are going to start turning on each other, because if you can get hardcore mobsters to start turning on each other that took blood oaths, that are risking death, like what's stopping like Stan and Jan from saying that, oh yeah, our friend Betsy left to go get an abortion? Like it's not this. People like keep thinking this is a game, but it's not. It's like,
it is not a fucking game.
The law
if you
says,
think it's a game, come fucking talk to me.
Exactly. The law says, just as is now, like a year in prison and $1,000 fine for people who aid and abet. And it's
a felony.
It's a felony, and life in prison potentially for doctors. So it's just like, this isn't a game. It's ridiculous.
It is not a game. And if you don't think they won't charge somebody like me or somebody like an abortion fund. With that, let me remind you that the state of Alabama charged a pregnant woman for getting shot in the stomach and losing her fetus with manslaughter.
I remember that.
She was not an aggressor. Someone was being aggressive with her. She attempted to flee. The woman pulled a gun and shot her in the stomach. She lost her fetus. And the state of Alabama charged her with manslaughter. Okay, so we haven't started hearing the stories yet. Give it another 2 weeks. People are going to turn on each other, and doctors in Alabama are going to turn your ass in. So let me give you a little piece of advice. If, hypothetically, one was to take abortion pills, no matter where they're sourced from, there is no way for any physician to tell that you took an abortion pill. As long as you take it in your mouth, you do not take it buccally, which means you insert it to the vagina. Do not tell on yourself, and the exact same medical care you would get for a natural miscarriage, not induced by any kind of pills, is the same as you would get in abortion care, except it's performed in a hospital versus the clinic. And emergency contraception is not the abortion pill. Plan B is not the abortion pill. You have to take that within 72 hours of unprotected sex. And that is totally legal in every state. It's over the counter. You don't have to worry about it. But please don't conflate Plan B and emergency contraception, levodostrel, which is the hormonal name for it, for the abortion pill. They are not the same.
Yeah. Do you think that they'll do you think they'll go to the they probably would. I'm gonna say, do you think they probably will eventually start charging people who have miscarriages? Like, just say like, oh, you were trying to
That already
terminate a pregnancy.
happens.
Yeah.
I mean, it already happens in Alabama. Alabama has one of the highest rates of charging pregnant people for pregnancy outcomes in the United States. Period. It's like 5 times the normal national rate. That's how high it is. And there's a study coming out about that soon. So be on the lookout for it, because you're going to see that rate go up. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. When the Alabama legislature goes into session, we're going to get a $10,000 bounty law. Even though abortion is illegal, they're going to mechanize some way for you to be worried about somebody snitching you out. It's done to create fear and to stop you from doing what you want to do. And they're going to do it. They're already trying to do it in other states. That's why Biden had to come out with his executive order that does absolutely nothing for anyone in the South, except for kind of protect people who may leave the South to get abortion care in abortion-friendly states, which the closest one of those abortion-friendly states to Alabama would be North Carolina. It takes me 8.5 hours, depending on when I hit Atlanta, to drive from Montgomery, Alabama to, for example, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
Do you think most people are going to be able to afford the gas and the time? And North Carolina has a 72-hour waiting period. That's even more than Alabama's was. That's 3 days. So then you got to get a hotel, and you have food. Because are you going to come back here all the way back to Montgomery, Alabama, and then wait 3 days because of the gas money? We mentioned how much gas costs now. It's going to be out of reach for people. So it protects people that are able to do that, or to get on a plane and fly to DC, or, people with better access. But it's not going to help anybody in Mississippi or Alabama or Tennessee or Arkansas or Texas or Missouri or Kansas, Oklahoma. It's not going to help anybody there. And these clinics are going to be overrun, y'all. Y'all don't even know what's coming. I worked in a clinic. When one clinic in Alabama goes down, it creates so much stress on these little bitty clinics like ours here in Montgomery. Imagine half of the country trying to come to your clinic. I don't think people have thought this through. Because we could lose Georgia. They institute that 6-week ban. That's before most people know they're pregnant. Tennessee's got a 6-week ban. Mississippi's a total ban. Arkansas is a total ban. Texas is about to be a total ban. You might go to Florida until Ron DeSantis gets them to pass a special session of the legislature to stop it. I guarantee you it's coming. It's an election year. He wants to be president. What do you think he's going to do?
Yeah.
It's dire, y'all. It's fucking dire.
And it seems like every week we're losing a different state, because I know that Louisiana was, and then like a court, the court put an injunction. So we're just waiting to see like what's going to happen in Louisiana.
Right. I mean, right. You could lose. It's a TRO. It's a temporary restraining order. It's not a permanent restraining order.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're going to appeal to the Louisiana Supreme Court. And guess what? When whatever happens in the Supreme Court, they're going to appeal to the fifth. And you're talking about the most conservative appellate court in the nation. And they're going to let that shit stand. And the whole entire South, except for maybe Florida, and that's going to be for a limited time, is going to be wiped out from Texas all the way to South Carolina.
One of our friends was telling me that there's a fight in Arizona right now because the district attorney, the state DA.
Personhood, yes.
Yeah, the state DA says, no, it's a ban. And the Republican governor was like, no, we passed the 15-week ban. That's the one in effect. And now they're literally two Republicans are fighting each other to be like, which law is actually in effect. And no one knows.
They have a bill to establish personhood too. So that's 3 levels of anti-abortion things going on in Arizona right now.
Woo.
New Mexico is an overwhelmingly abortion-friendly state. So is Colorado. Illinois is too. But Wisconsin has got a total ban on abortion right now. Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And you're barely eking out Michigan because their governor was like, no, they saw it coming too. And it's like, you can't enforce this ban. And they took preemptive steps. Otherwise, Michigan would be banned right now.
And then Wisconsin, they're fighting the governor, and they said like they're not going to prosecute. The state legislators like, wait a minute, no, we have the ban. And so it's like it's Democrats statewide, but then like the Republicans control the legislature, so now they're all fighting to see like, what the fuck's going to happen. What's up with South Carolina? Because on the maps that I've seen, oddly enough, like South Carolina right now is, I guess, in limbo. Like I thought they passed. I thought they had a trigger ban.
No, South Carolina has a 6-week ban right now, which might as well be a trigger ban because, like I said, most people, unless you've been pregnant before, which most people who have abortions have been pregnant before, but when you talk about younger people, people look at me like I'm crazy when I say this, but 9 years old. I've seen 9-year-old in the clinic, victim of the worst things you can imagine. They don't know they're pregnant unless you've already been pregnant before. So you're talking about a majority of young people who have never been parents are going to be totally beyond any abortion care. So like I said, Georgia is going to have a 6-week ban. South Carolina is going to have a 6-week ban. The majority of teenagers people see at clinics are 12 to 15 weeks because they're hiding it. They might suspect something, but sometimes they hide it. And that's just the simple truth of teenagers because they're scared, particularly in the South where we demonize things like this. So it's just, I don't think people understand the Pandora's box that they have opened. And unfortunately, because abortion care and laws around abortion care inform laws and what people perceive as laws around miscarriage management, fetal demise management. You're going to see, unfortunately, you're going to see people die. And unfortunately, you're going to hear horrible stories. And it hasn't happened. I've heard some stories. I'm sure you have too, about the 10-year-old in Ohio. And I hate that this is going to follow her around. I hope no one knows her identity and ever lets it out. But I mean, this is the reality we were facing. And I don't know how to fix it. I don't think anyone knows how to fix it. The only way I know how to fix it, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, we can't do it in the South. We can't vote our way out of abortion bans. And we can't vote our way out of abortion bans because we've been gerrymandered to hell and back. The only people that can do anything in this country are going to be people who are in blue states and people who are in swing states. You are going to have to flip some seats, and you are going to have to get out there and work your ass off. If you want to be an ally to the South, if you want for them not to come for you, because guess what? You're next too. Don't get comfortable. You're next. Believe me on that. You're going to have to work your ass off and get us some more seats in the Senate and keep the House. That is the only way I see anything happening. Is, oh, you got to vote your way out. Like I said, we can't do that shit in the South. So it's going to be up to blue states. And if y'all don't do it, I'm telling you right now, I will never see legal abortion in my lifetime. I will be dead. I am 48. Because once you lose a right, it's gone for at least one generation. You don't have to be a history major to see that. And that is where we're headed. And it's depressing as fuck.
As a political scientist and history person, I approve that message. It's 100% right.
Thank you.
No, it's just like, it's like when you lose it, you don't. It's just like it's fucking when the Supreme Court ruled in Plessy v. Ferguson, it took early 1900s to 1964. So it took 60 something years.
You
50,
lose it for a
50,
generation.
Yeah, use it for a generation.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something. Oh yeah. No, Mike Pence has already come out, and what is it? The faith and freedom bullshit was already like, we want a nationwide ban. Like Republicans are already calling for a nationwide ban.
If you don't think Mitch McConnell will put that shit up the minute those elections are over, honey, I will give you everything I own, because that's how confident I am in it. Because I know I have been around these people. I have been around these politicians for so many years, and they've been telling you they're going to do it, and they're telling you they're going to do it now. They put it in Supreme Court briefs. And if you can't see this coming, then I suggest you hit an eye doctor up, because you were blind as fuck.
I'm Mitch McConnell, and I'm going to ban abortion. I'm a turtle.
Nationwide. That includes you, California.
Hear that, Pacific Northwest? Our fans
that
in Oregon.
includes you, New York.
Portland.
New York, right? You too, Oregon.
Well, this is depressing.
It's just I was gonna say, and this is a lovely, depressing fucking episode. Everything is fucked. Everything is fucked. And this is why I can't sleep at night. And I dream of maps and roads and things that I won't get into here.
I dream of trains. I'm trying to, like, it really is fucking depressing, because like it's
depressing,
and people don't, and like people outside of the South like don't fucking get it. Mark, did you want to say something? I saw you unmuted. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No.
No.
I was just. This needs to be edited out.
No, we have to have moments of comic relief.
My redneck background noise of a car starting up outside and the dogs barking. I was trying to keep it where you could understand everything Mia was saying, instead of battling to figure out what she was trying to say.
There's something.
Thank you for putting me on blast, Nelson.
Sorry, Mark. We gotta leave it in. We need moments to break up the depressing. Yes.
You do,
man.
because this is depressing as fuck.
I mean, how many people have you had show up that didn't know that abortion was illegal in Alabama? I'm sure like there's a bunch of like people still showing up to different places thinking that like they don't know. Like people still don't know.
Right. I have at least one person show up at the clinic every day. I'm at the Powerhouse, and right now I'm there Monday through Friday. So it's tapered off. The first week was just terrible. The first week was a mix of people who had been to our clinic and accessed care at our clinic coming to our clinic because they were so upset and they were worried about us. And they didn't know what to do. And they would tell me, I didn't know what to do, but I knew I could come here and you could tell me how I can help y'all. And to hear patients, man, I'm not going to cry on this episode, but it broke me. It broke me. It breaks me when a patient is a non-native English speaking person. And we have to get out the translating apps, which are really shit. And I have to tell this person that's driven over 3 hours that abortion is illegal in Alabama, and they just wasted 3 hours of their time and gas money, and I'm sure a snack or whatever, probably childcare, that they can't get the care that they need here. And because I know where they live, I know exactly where they can get the closest abortion care to them in the state that was closest to them, but I couldn't tell them the city, just the state. And that makes me so angry because CPCs, which are, quote, crisis pregnancy centers run by anti-abortion people, like to name their places like Choices or First Choice or Her Choice or something that sounds very abortion friendly. And considering that Alabama on average has 100 CPCs scattered throughout the state versus 3 abortion clinics, and the CPC here is called First Choice and the CPC in Tuscaloosa is called Choices, your average person is not going to know that's anti-abortion, and they're going to be wasting their time. So you see where it gets.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking angry.
So I'm on the. This is the one thing that New York Times hasn't blocked with a paywall. Tracking the states where abortion is banned as of July 8th, 3:20 Pacific time.
It's literally down to the hour. Yes.
Yeah. So right now, total bans: Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Wisconsin, South Dakota, West Virginia. Expected soon are Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota,
Iowa,
and Tennessee. And they said bans that are blocked are Arizona, Utah, and Kentucky. And they said restricted.
Well, it's also blocked in Louisiana.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Louisiana's. Yeah. I don't know why this doesn't have that one. Just. Oh yeah. Here we go. Louisiana's trigger ban is in effect after judge ruled that lawsuit to block the ban needed to be heard. But the latest update: Louisiana trigger ban is in effect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Trigger ban is in effect after judge ruled lawsuit had to be blocked. Yeah. So yeah.
What time was that today?
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. It says latest updates. What is today? Today's
the 8th.
Today's the 8th. So on New York Times, latest updates: Louisiana's trigger ban is in effect after a judge ruled that a lawsuit to block the ban needed to be heard in another court. So yeah,
that came down. It came down this afternoon then, because I know for a fact Louisiana was seeing patients this morning.
Yep, it must have been this afternoon. That's why they have it.
My God,
minute. Yeah.
Oh, it makes me so fucking angry because I know patients were in those clinics, and I know that somebody was about to be next in line, and then the fucking lawyers called, and I know someone didn't get the abortion care that they needed today because of a fucking judge.
So with restricted gestational limit in effect is Utah, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Ohio. It's blocked in Kentucky and expected soon Arizona and Georgia. Yep. Legal, I guess legal for now. Lawmakers or courts will decide. Montana, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina. And they said legal, either protected or expanding access is Pacific Northwest, Alaska, Hawaii, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois, all of New England,
Connecticut, Massachusetts,
yeah, all of New England,
Rhode
Massachusetts, all that good-
Island.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, all that good stuff.
Well,
So
I happen
basically,
to know
hollowed
that
out the South and the Midwest.
right, and that's why our plan was never to go to the Midwest, because I could probably feasibly drive people allegedly to Illinois as fast as I could to, say, Charlotte or Maryland or Virginia. But all those states you just mentioned in the Midwest, guess where they're going to flock to? And guess what? I'm not going to be able to get someone an appointment for probably 4 or 5 months. You don't have to be a mathematician to know that's not going to work. There are not enough clinics to handle that kind of patient load. There's just not, unless you operate them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's just unsustainable. Period.
Real quick, I do have a question. So I know, I guess, I don't know, I guess it does, I guess it helps, but so as we know, the Mississippi clinic is closed, but I know Whole Women's Health in Texas has opened up a facility right across the border in New Mexico.
And yes, and Jackson Women's Health, which was the Dobbs case, the Pink House in Jackson, Mississippi, they are actually moving their clinic to North Mexico, New Mexico. Like I said, it's been a long friggin' day.
Yeah.
So basically, the clinic owner and most of the clinic staff are packing up out of Jackson, Mississippi, and moving to New Mexico.
You saw the news reports where they had the signs around the fence, like, I guess the
that broke me. Patient, I know people probably don't know what this is. The Pink House, aka Jackson Women's Health, aka the abortion clinic, and the Dobbs ruling, is affectionately known, like I said, as the Pink House. And they have a very elaborate fencing system around the clinic because they get way more processors than us. And what they did, they went and got foam core boards and allowed patients who were the last patients at that clinic, I believe, to write down how they felt. And they placed them between the top of, arrows pointing up of this massive iron gated fence before they left the clinic, and it closed permanently. And that broke me because, I'm a clinic escort. I will always be a clinic escort. It's not something you're a former of, because when you're a clinic escort, you're part of a family. And that family reaches out throughout the United States because we take care of us. We've always taken care of us. And if a clinic needs you, they will call you. We go to North Carolina a lot before COVID to help people up there because they get protested by 5,000 people at one time. So you have clinic escorts all the way from Alabama, people from Ohio and California, all over the United States that come to North Carolina because one clinic gets protested in October and November every year by about 5,000 people. And you don't have enough clinic escorts for that clinic to deal with 5,000 people descending on your little tiny clinic. So yeah, that kind of broke me. Pink House, when I first started the Powerhouse, they were some of the first people to offer me help. So I have a great affection for the clinic escorts at Pink House, and my heart breaks for them. I'm here. I can't leave Alabama, but the people who are leaving Mississippi to continue to do the work in a place far away that's not the South, I have the utmost respect for. And now is a depressing break, right?
Yeah. So for, I guess, a positive note, what are y'all doing at the Powerhouse? Like, what have y'all been able to do? You had that post basically go viral. You had a bunch of news coverage. Like, what's some good stuff y'all have been able to do?
let me get a drink here because my throat's kind of dry. Hold on. 1 second. So, what we've done as a powerhouse is when I figured out that Alabama was going to Alabama, I was like, okay, what can I do to be as proactive and help my community as I can? So, I decided that we would open up the house Monday through Friday from 8 to noon, and I would make a huge Amazon wish list that included Plan B, condoms, latex and non-latex, pregnancy tests, ovulation strips. We already had hand sanitizer, and I told you about the little sheet of paper that I have that my very expensive fucking attorneys approved that says what I can and cannot say. So we basically went viral over offering all this to our community for free. No questions asked, no strings attached, no nothing. I don't keep any data on you. I don't ask you how old you are, nothing. Because you can walk into any pharmacy in America and buy Plan B over the counter. Same with condoms. So all of our amazing supporters went to the Amazon wish list and it was sold out within a day and a half. So I put more stuff on it, more Plan B, more condoms, things like that, things that I would know go fast. And it's basically already sold out again. So it is the light. And I tell you, it's the light in my world right now, because I couldn't be able to help people without other people helping us help people. And to see the response is just, it's just amazing. It is community taking care of community because we keep us safe. Fuck the state, fuck the cops, fuck your fucking court, abort the court. We will keep us safe. And right now, this just happens to be the way that we keep us safe. I want to expand, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We'll have another episode. But it's happy things. It's happy, great things, because people can't believe that they can get this stuff for free. Plan B costs on average $50 at a pharmacy if you walk in and buy it off the shelf in a panic situation. You can come get it from me for no cost. You can come get pregnancy tests. I don't limit you to just one. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 because that's the reality. You're going to need more than one. But we give you all that stuff for free. Like I said, as long as people keep helping me to help other people, we will keep doing it. All the money we raise goes to pay the bills at the house. None of us are paid. None of us have ever been paid. I've never taken a salary from the house. It is an absolute labor of love. And it's a labor of love for our community, by our community. And it is absolutely the only thing keeping me sane right now. Because I'm so angry. How do you feel, Kai?
It's really hard to talk.
I can understand, but I want to hear from you.
Well, the first thing that I noticed is that once the ruling was handed down, so when the ruling was handed down, I was literally in the parking lot of a ferry to go to an island to visit some family, and I was kind of in that panic situation of how soon do we need to put an episode out? We need to get more information out, and then so that was minutes of hearing about it, right. And then within a couple hours, it was already seeing massive amounts of disinformation being spread on social media, and not necessarily in a malicious way. It was people who don't live in the South giving bad information of what's actually happening, especially during a time when these laws were being changed within minutes, and it was actively impacting people who were in clinics at that minute, and how it was going. And within the first couple days, I was starting to see maps with bad information on it, and not knowing exactly what what the misinformation was, but knowing that this is bad information, because I know that people just wanted to share something. They just wanted to share something and say something on the matter. And they're from California, they're in Oregon, they're in New York State, and they don't think that the insidiousness of the laws in the South could mean like changing laws within minutes, and what kind of appeals it's going to have to go through, and injunctions and all this stuff, that it was just really poor information. And then within a couple days of that, once I got back to where I live, I started seeing a lot of British people commenting on it. And a lot of British people were finally learning the abortion laws, especially within Northern Ireland and within England. And Scotland also has slightly different laws to England. Like over here, England has comparatively the most liberal laws out of the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom. And people were finally starting to investigate that, because it was like, and I'm completely guilty of this as well, that you were kind of complacent knowing that abortion is legal, but you don't know what the limits are, what the access is for people who live in remote areas, or who live in Northern Ireland, or who live in Wales, or who live in Scotland, and everything. And there was finally starting to become this conversation in this country where people were finally figuring out, well, England has a 24-week limit, and that Scotland has a much short, I think it's like 18 weeks or something like that, because Scotland has a shorter limit. And that a lot of people in Northern Ireland have to like fly over to England or take a boat over. And I can't imagine, when the Republic of Ireland still had the ban on the books, I remember getting newsletters from a fund that I used to give to about it was like a place where people could go to get help to come to England to get their abortions done. And the same thing is happening in Northern Ireland, but Northern Ireland is constantly forgotten about in this country. Like if your average English person does not think about Northern Ireland whatsoever, much less their abortion laws or how restrictive it is there. and so like it finally started to like open up here, and people were finally starting to understand, well, we should know.
Holy shit.
We should know what is actually on the books here. And then we had a minister in Parliament. Like I remember bringing up a few weeks ago when we were talking about the ruling is probably going to be handed out in June. So this is probably in May. I remember saying that we had a minister on the floor of Parliament talk about how he was anti-abortion, and then right after the ruling was handed down in the States, we had another minister who was on the floor talking about how he is anti-abortion. And now that there's this conversation happening over here, people were really quick to start looking at, okay, who funds this guy? And this guy might not have any deep feelings whatsoever when it comes to abortion. However, he is massively funded by Americans, and Americans who are part of the anti-choice pit, whatever it is.
Catholic.
Yeah, Catholic. Basically. And I don't think that, so for our handful of British/European listeners, I want you to understand that when I said before that whatever happens in the States eventually filters over here, and especially in the UK, it tends to happen. Like something that happens in the state, a slightly discolored version of it will happen in the UK. So we have ministers who are floating this idea. They're floating this idea. They're backed by American money. They're backed by American groups. And now that people are learning that we do have this 24-week limit, and that people who live in Northern Ireland have a much harder time, people who live in Scotland have a shorter time limit, and all these things, like we need to be aware that it's coming. We need to stop it before it gets any closer than this. And I don't mean to say this as like, oh, we should use American problems as like, oh, we need to be better than them. No, it's not a we need to be better than them. This is not this is not a typical argument of, well, Europe is always so much better than America, and of course what do you expect happens in America. Like, fuck that conversation. That kind of false sense of superiority doesn't help, especially when whatever happens in America ends up coming to Europe anyway. And when you discount it like this, you're letting it seep in so much faster. We need to be on top of it immediately. And not only that, we need to be thinking about how to better support people in Northern Ireland and Scotland itself. Scotland is going to have another vote on devolution from the UK next year in 2023. So Scottish laws are not going to, like, Scottish laws are already not that tied to English laws / UK laws. There's a difference in how the governments are formed and everything. But that means that if Scotland has this shorter time, what is it going to be like for Scottish people who maybe have gone past that time limit and have to come to England the same way that Irish people had to come to England? That, like, as long as we have a clear view of what's happening right now, and we need to keep on top of it without pretending that what happened in America can't happen over here.
Absolutely, because let me tell you, if you let religion, money, and politics seep into this from here, y'all are so fucked too.
Exactly.
And I hate to say it, but it's true, because the churches is where the money comes from. And the religious aspect, you know better than I do about what goes on over there, so I'm not going to try to speak to that. But both are very insidious, and you have to stop them now.
Also, for our friends in the Great White North of Canada, even though dreamy old
Trudeau.
Trudeau, I was gonna say something. It was like tactical use of blackface Trudeau. Even though don't be fooled by his dreamy eyes telling you that, oh, abortion will always be safe in Canada. You already have conservative their version of like state governors, right? Already like provincial leaders or whatever of the Conservative Party already talking about restricting access. So
well, let me tell you something I know about abortion access in Canada, because we are so close, and some provinces, or whatever they call them in Canada, I can't remember right now because my brain is fried, abortion is not accessible.
Yeah.
So you would have to go to another province, which is just like going to another state. So don't let Trudeau fool you, because right now I happen to know for a fact that there are some places in Canada where you have to travel 400 to 500, 600 miles to get an abortion. So really, how accessible is that to your average Canadian? I don't know. I know the people that I talk to, and the people I talk to say that in some communities that they have the same problems that we have in Alabama. So, it's.
Yeah. And the same for our handful of Australia. Yeah. Same for our handful of Australian listeners. Last time I was there, I don't know. I don't think it's changed. There's no federal regulation state by state. So we'll just take, a state could ban it, and they have different laws for the different states that they have. So also look out, because their conservatives are wild. So like I could definitely see them. They're more religious than like other Commonwealth conservatives. Because of all people, Boris Johnson was just like, a woman has a right to choose, and I'm going to resign from the prime ministership. But like in Australia,
do you know how many? When it comes to Boris Johnson, every single one of his marriages has failed because he's fucked someone else and had a child with them. So if abortion was outlawed for Boris Johnson, and granted, we're not going to get into the weeds of the fact that Boris Johnson has enough money, and anybody who has enough money can always access abortion. It's anybody else who can't.
Yeah.
But if Boris Johnson was somehow blocked from accessing abortion, his life would be so much more fucked than it already is.
Even with his blue passport.
God.
But yeah, so like I remember Australia's conservatives like kind of like they're more religious than like other Commonwealth conservatives. It just is like I could see them totally having a full ban, at least some states banning it outright. But like but yeah, so just it's coming. creeping Americanism. It's coming. Ooh, we're gonna get you.
Yes. And I just got off the phone with a guy from Australia who called me and said it was, oh yeah, it's at like 8 a.m. in Australia, you know, whatever. And I was like, dude, I'm so tired, but I'll talk to you anyway. And he was like, you know, this is really not an issue except for like in one or two provinces or whatever in Australia where it's kind of, you know, restricted, but it's not really restricted. And I was like, you have no idea what you're getting into trying to come to Alabama to talk to me, because this is going to blow your mind. You got to stop it. You got to stop it because it is creeping fascism.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to say it. I sit here in the state of Alabama right now, and I've had 2 amendments taken away from me. I've had the 14th Amendment, and I feel like I have the First Amendment taken away from me.
And then like we're talking about like relative due process, right? So like it's like you mentioned before, it's not just abortion rights. They're coming after birth control, they're coming after sodomy laws, which is not like, I think people don't realize, like, if Lawrence versus Texas falls, like there's a lot of other stuff. Like it's not even like I looked it up, 14 states still have anti-sodomy laws on the books. Ironically, Alabama doesn't. We repealed ours in 2019, which is weird. I thought that of all places we would still have it. But it's not just unmarried people. It's literally married heterosexual couples can go to jail, can go to prison for violating anti-sodomy laws. So like, and also this is way before the internet. So I know I mentioned this on TikTok, but like anyone who has a particular site that has uploaded certain videos of that are subscription based that people pay to see, you've just incriminated yourself if that's filmed in a state that is going to have anti-sodomy laws when Lawrence v. Texas falls. So also, let's not forget, I looked into the case. It's a former partner of the person that the 2 people that got arrested literally called the police and said, oh, this person has a gun. And they busted in and caught them like during the act. But what's going to happen when neighbors start turning on neighbors and saying, hey, come to this apartment now. These people are violating the law. And you're going to have cops busting down people's doors, catching them in the act, and arresting them and throw them in prison. Like it's neighbors are going to turn in neighbors. Stuff you put on the internet is going to be used against you. And it's going to be bad. And then also we have to look at people on TikTok, trans activists are talking about like forced detransitioning because people are not in Alabama. That's the thing. Like,
thank you.
They're gonna take away people's right to identify who they want to identify as, and it's a snowball effect that because you already have Republicans talking about overturning fucking Loving versus Virginia, and so
Griswold versus Connecticut.
So it's just like there goes interracial marriage, and there goes your right to fucking birth control. Like it's a snowball effect.
Right. Let me tell you how insidious this is. Steve Marshall has already quoted Dobbs to say that he could go after parents of transgender minors who seek care for their children outside of the state of Alabama. So just last week, you had the Attorney General for the state of Alabama threatening parents of minor children who chose for, you know, whatever reasons they wanted to choose to have their child treated in Alabama and supported in Alabama, that he could use the abortion decision, because it's, quote, not deeply rooted in American history, to charge people leaving Alabama to say go to Georgia or Atlanta, what have you, for trans care for their minor children. So within a week, you already have this intersection. And I'm sorry, trans people, intersex people, non-binary people get abortions every day. Pregnant people should be our language. And if you've got a problem with it, you fucking come see me.
And you don't want to do that because me is mad. She'll kill you.
I am mad. And I feel like the only amendment that Alabama won't fuck with me on is the second one. And guess what? Guess what, bitches? You don't want to fuck with me on the second one, okay? I'm just saying. But I mean, that's literally how I feel right now. It's I never, like I said, this is on me for not thinking Alabama was going to Alabama. But I never thought I would be in such a situation within a span of 2 weeks. I feel like I had 2 amendments that we are supposed to hold sacred and dear as Americans, which we all know is bullshit. But you know, most people don't care about any amendment except for the first and second. I'm good in Alabama with the second, but the first one, it covers a lot of fucking ground. Not just free speech, but you know, separation of church and state and things like that. This is where we're headed, folks. You got people who have cases in front of the Supreme Court of the United States praying with justices in the Supreme Court. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I just saw that today. Yeah.
Do you know how highly unusual and oh my God that is for most of the legal community? That is unfucking heard of. We are on a fucking skateboard to fucking hell. I know.
Yeah.
Can Tony Hawk be on my skateboard today? I feel like I need to laugh about
just do a
something.
fucking 900. Spin around. Oh man. Yeah. The Mark, God, you don't want to say anything? Got any? I don't know.
Well, what I was gonna say when we were talking about trans care just a second ago, the first thing that I thought, because I was at work, and I just so happened to like glance and see people talking about it being overturned. The first thing that came through my head was the fear that they were going to use any type of female to male or non-binary medicine, because you don't necessarily have to be identify as a trans male to be on testosterone. That
Right.
they were going to classify the injections, the gel, whatever you're doing as contraception because it affects your reproductive system. I like that they might not have that idea yet. I'm sure that once they start attacking trans healthcare, they'll be like, oh, we can include this under our abortion healthcare restrictions.
You are not
And-
wrong in your thinking, except they would consider it abortifacient.
Yeah, because
Yeah, because right now I know people who have a prescription for methotrexate for a medical condition, and because they are AFAB and still have the ability to become pregnant, even though they have an IUD, their doctors are refusing to fill their methotrexate because it can be considered, and it is used as an abortifacient when you're dealing with a tubal pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're absolutely right, and some people consider IUDs as an abortifacient. I guess they think it's a little miniature abortion clinic in your cervix. I don't know. It's not an abortifacient, but they think it is. They claim it is, but medically and scientifically, it is not. So they will absolutely use any kind of quote loophole that they think they can get to classify people who take these different hormones and treatments for trans care as an abortifacient. I can totally see that coming. And like I said, they're coming for everybody. They are coming. I mean, look at the level of trans rhetoric, anti-trans rhetoric we have right now. I grew up in the Reagan years where, you know, it was 4 or 5 years before he even mentioned the word AIDS. Okay, my parents had so many friends die. And I don't remember the level of vitriol being exactly this bad. And I know that sounds weird, but back then, I mean, you talked about it, but you really weren't so explicit about it, and the hate didn't seep through. And what I mean by that, it was more love the sinner, hate the sin. Now it's hate the sinner, hate the sin.
Right.
And
had a-
besides, I mean, Clarence Thomas already told you what he was coming for in his dissent. I mean, his, not dissent, but his, agreement, his concurrence.
Speaking of Catholics, Clarence Thomas is playing the long game because he can't get a divorce. So
he's real close to legislating away his own fucking marriage.
He's got that. No, that's it. It's a Catholic. It's a Catholic divorce. He's gonna vote to overturn Loving versus Virginia, so he can get out of marriage because he can't get a divorce. Oh my god. Well, to round it, I was going to say, to round it all out, Kai, you want to talk about the other snowball effect? This is happening in the Supreme Court.
Yes, I'm going to shut up right now because I've been dying to hear what Kai has to say on this. Because honestly, Kai, you were the first person when I heard this, besides my husband. I was like, I want to hear their take on this, and I'm a white person, so I'm going to shut up now.
So they're both alluding to the future decision on the Brecken versus Holland case that's coming up, specifically against Deb Haaland, the
Interior Secretary.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the first Indigenous person to hold the position.
Yes. Total badass.
She's amazing. She's Native people tend to call her Auntie Deb, like she's the best.
I can't call her that, but she is the best.
She so the case is basically about the Indian Child Welfare Act. That's been in place since the late 70s, and consequently, if you ever want to look into how fucked things are in the United States, look at how many rights were not guaranteed for Indigenous people until the 1970s. You have like the Religious Act and the Indian Child Welfare Act, and etc. So yeah, it's been in place since the late 70s, since 1978, and it's basically a act that is to help ensure that Indigenous children, should they need to be placed outside of their, I guess the language I'll use is their birth home, that every attempt should be made to place that child with another Indigenous family. And this definitely comes up with adoption laws and everything, because one of the ways that people accessed adoptions in the United States was to adopt Indian babies, basically. And there's a couple pieces of kind of ephemera floating around out there showing that people could buy Indian babies in the 50s. Like there's literally documents saying that you can send $10 to a certain, I think it was a Catholic school, like a Catholic boarding school. You could buy an Indian baby for about $10 in the 50s.
Yes.
So if anybody listened to my boarding schools episode back in December, back then I was talking mostly about the Canadian system, but a very, very similar system has been in place in the US, where children were forcibly made orphans or basically being seized by the state because the state has deemed their parents unsafe or whatever reasons. They could be too poor, they could be too Indian, they could be too rural in some cases. It's very nebulous trying to figure out what actually are the reasons to strip a child from a family. And before anybody wants to get on my case, yes, sometimes these cases were in fact because the child was in danger and that they should be taken from that house. But there are so many ways that children were removed from these houses anyway, and they were basically put up as a to use some of the language that's been thrown around lately, a domestic adoption supply. Granted, they
Yes.
weren't white, but they were a domestic adoption supply. And this is basically what was in place before it became in vogue for people to adopt from Korea or from China or from Africa. People who have a savior complex and decided that they want to adopt a child,
And the
but
expenses.
partially, I'm sorry?
The expense of
Exactly,
adopting
yeah.
from, yes, my husband's grandmother was, and in Alabama we called it enumerated from
Mhm,
her native parents into a white family
mhm.
in 1910.
Yep.
And that's what
That's
they called it. That's what they called it in Alabama, was that you were enumerated. If you were a native or indigenous person, you were enumerated from your
I,
family into a white family.
I mean, in my own family, my great grandmother was Apache, and she was in the documents listed as orphaned. And the problem with that kind of word is because we don't know, does orphaned mean her parents were forcibly killed? Does that mean that she was stolen from her family? Does that mean that they don't know what happened to her family, but they decided not to search within the community for any familial ties for her? And she was given, and I mean that, given to a German family. And to this day, we don't know what band Apache she is. And for several tribes, you can be in the tribe, but also your band or sometimes your clan, etc. That is very important because that's an even smaller designation of who you are.
Right.
So yeah, we don't know anything about her family, and the romanticized story that I've heard from her life, that I'm not sure how much credence I want to give to it, but kind of working on what I have, is that she ran away, and in order to stay away from that German family, she married my great grandfather, who was quite a bit older than her. Now, knowing knowing sexual politics, that's a questionable story, but knowing racial politics, that could be true. It could be the easiest way for her to stay away from this German family was to marry another Indian, basically. So I don't know which way to come down on that, but yes, this is very, very common. This happened a lot. This is how a lot of indigenous people were kind of disenrolled, because the children were taken away, and the fewer children you have in the population, the fewer people are going to be enrolled further on. So yeah, the Indian Child Welfare Act was put in place in the 70s, basically to stem the amount of kids who are being taken, for whatever reasons, from indigenous families and put into non-indigenous homes. There is the case that's coming up with Brackeen versus Holland, is basically Brackeen, the parents, I think this was around 2015 or 2017, they wanted to adopt a Navajo child. And before that adoption was finalized, the tribe sourced another Navajo family that the child could go to. And there was a back and forth and everything. And the Brackeens actually won the case. They ended up adopting the child. However, they've decided to continue with this, and they're bringing this up as a constitutional issue. Even though they got to adopt the child that they want to, and it is cited in the documents that this family is a white family. The white family adopted a Navajo child, and they're continuing this case as a constitutional issue because the wording in the Indian Child Welfare Act is unconstitutional to anybody who's not Native American. And I want you to hear all of the sarcasm in my voice, because the people who are fighting against this say that it's a race issue rather than a sovereignty issue. Now, it does kind of, there's several steps that you have to understand why this is so fucking dangerous. And this is why I kind of went on that rant at the end of the last episode where I talked about this. That seems like it's not tied together. It is tied together. And that's because tribes are supposed to be sovereign entities within the United States. That's why we have treaties. And because they're sovereign entities, that means that the government to government relationship is a federal one. So if they scrapped the Indian Child Welfare Act, that puts the footing of that federal standing for indigenous sovereign nations into question. And that's why I kind of went on that huge rant on that other episode, because even though this is a very, very important issue, and it seems like it's just the issue of Indian children and adoption, etc., this is actually, every time they can get rid of one of these acts, they're weakening the standing of this, the federal relationship between these governments, between sovereign nations and the federal government in the U.S. And every time they weaken that, that means that the next one is going to be weaker. The next act they want to affect is weaker, and that it keeps going. And that's why when it comes to these issues, especially with Indigenous people, is that Indigenous people in the United States are not just a race. It is also a political identity. So yes, my race is Native American. However, if I was enrolled, that is also a political identity. That means that I have a political system behind me that is not the American system. For me, it would be the Ganawagi / the Haudenosaunee kind of council, the Mohawk Council that's up in Canada, or I could also have one through Oklahoma with my Comanche side. But every time they weaken one of these, this could change the federal aid, the federal recognition for housing, for land management, for water management. If they
For healthcare.
if they choose to see this as, if the court decides that this is a racial thing and not a sovereignty thing, then that undermines the treaties, that undermines all of the sovereign actions of the tribes, that undermines the connection, the federal connection between these two. It's weakening. It's it's an overall horrific thing to hear. Just, I mean, you also, like, at the bottom of this, you do have kids. You have kids who are being stripped away from their cultures and put into other cultures because usually white families want to have a savior complex about kids. Like, I already know what it's like to be removed from just your familial ties, being Indigenous and being removed from most of your family. I have cousins who have an Indigenous father, and I think in almost every case, a white mother who ended up raising their child, and their child knows nothing about being Indigenous, knows nothing about our world, what our families like, what the government is like for our respective peoples, language, or anything like that. And then you also have the if these kids are taken away and adopted by these white families, they're missing out on so much. It's on a spiritual level, it's horrifying. But on a federal level, it is an attack. It is a bold move, and it's an attacking move against Indigenous people and sovereignty and all of those agreements that have been made over the last 250 years.
And let me tell you where you were correct on that, and how one thing is seen as a compromise can weaken the other, because Roe was the floor, and then we had the compromise in Casey, which was 1992-ish. So you're talking 1973 to 1992, and then 1992 to 2022, and now they've taken out both. So it is a compromise, and it's kind of in the same way. It's going in that same thing, and that's why everything is intersectional.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have the 5-4 decision, or it might have been 6. No, I think it was 5-4 because Gorsuch, for some reason, is like I say, he's a robot. He Oklahoma v. Castro.
The McGirt decision, right?
Yeah. So McGirt
Yes.
said that. Yeah. So McGirt said that basically a good chunk of Oklahoma is Indian territory, right? It's federally recognized native land. However, the case that's Oklahoma v. Castro Herrera, that they ruled in June 29th, that
Weakened it.
and now state governments and state police can now go on and arrest people
Yes.
on native land. So now you're gonna have
on what sovereign land
Yeah.
supposed to be not trespassable, I guess you
exactly.
would
So
say.
now you're gonna have a possibility of the Indian Child Welfare Act overturned, and then you're gonna be able to have state police go on sovereign land and start snatching up people. So it's a direct attack against tribal sovereignty.
And I want to also point out, I had the last time I went off on this, it was a wild kind of like visceral reaction to it. But this time I decided to look into what is actually coming up, because this is supposed to be this case, the Brackeen versus Holland, is supposed to be coming up in the fall session.
Yes.
So right now it's being talked about, especially in light of what happened in the last one. So I decided to look it up, and there is this Brackeen family. There have been other smaller cases where families have tried to fight the Indian Child Welfare Act, saying that it's racist, basically. This is the first time it's gotten to this point, but I want to point out the money that's behind this, that there are organizations supporting this lawsuit, including the Cato Institute and the Goldwater Institute. And Nelson didn't know who the Goldwater Institute was, but he correctly guessed that it was started by Barry Goldwater.
Barry Goldwater.
So these are two horrible organizations, conservative / libertarian organizations that have a lot of money and have every desire to strip indigenous sovereignty and strip that federal relationship in order to, again, this is a plundering thing. If you strip the rights of indigenous people away, then that means that they have no right to the land that they're on and no right to the resources that are within their lands, and no right to this quote unquote special fucking crumb of a relationship by having like the Indian health service and the casinos like special. Yeah, so these actions are always at the bottom of it to strip that sovereignty, because once you do that, suddenly you have all this land that people can access, you have all these resources that people can access, you have these casinos, you have no money special efforts to help indigenous people whatsoever for all the bullshit that was done to us for the last 500 years. So this is always at the bottom of it. It's never just, oh well, we want to have these poor little Indian children have loving families. I mean, how dare these horrible Indians want to deprive these children of special loving families? That's not it. It's not it. They do see this as a race issue. So yeah, there is a racist overtone of this, but there is also, the bottom of it is always strip these rights so that we can get rid of federal recognition, so that we can access these things that these American institutions believe are already theirs.
Woo!
Wah, wah.
Womp, womp, womp. Mark, you gotta give us a good womp womp womp.
I don't know how sad I can make a womp womp. I don't know.
Womp womp womp.
That's the opening for the show, Mr. Speaker. That's the opening for the show. I don't know how sad I can make my womp womp.
Womp womp.
I was already reaching for the unmute. I could feel that you wanted me to do that for you.
Thank you.
You know, wave your scepter and the jester will dance for you. Don't worry.
It's okay. I'll wave my ultrasound wand around. Nelson can tell you about that.
That picture is great. I'm the pink-haired devil lady. I curse you all with my wand.
Wait, is it one of the internal ones or an external one?
Oh no, it was
it was the transvaginal ultrasound wand, because in 2012, the Alabama legislature decided they wanted to make everyone accessing abortion care get a transvaginal ultrasound, which is not needed medically unless you have had several C-sections where there's scar tissue and you cannot see on a normal ultrasound, because scar tissue is hard to see through, or you're over a certain weight, which is also kind of shitty, but that's the way it is in the medical community. Sometimes you have to have a transvaginal ultrasound, but it's not medically necessary. So yes, the clinic happened to have one that had been broken, And I saw it and I was like, well, what is that laying around? We're like, well, we meant to throw it out, but it's medical waste and blah blah blah. And I'm like, can I have it? And they're like, what do you want it for? And I'm like, I want to go to the Alabama legislature and wave it in their face and tell you that it's state-sponsored rape. And that's what I did. So I took this transvaginal ultrasound wand, and there is a picture of me waving it around in front of the Alabama legislature.
I had a friend a very long time ago who was pregnant, and I was part of their care team at the time.
You were a
going to their
doula.
appointments. I was going to their appointments and everything with them, doing all that
doula.
stuff. I guess
You were.
and I accompanied them to the appointment where they had a transvaginal one, and I was fucking horrified.
Like, what?
Yeah, I can't imagine like how uncomfortable it was not being pregnant having one, to being so uncomfortable just laying in any sort of position,
Right.
and then them forcing you to have that.
Right.
I had to
especially
hold
when
the
it was medically unnecessary.
I had to hold the sheet for her while she got undressed, and I the thing that sticks out to me most was hearing it happen.
Yes.
Fucking horrifying. And she had a wanted and successful pregnancy, and she never said anything about not wanting to have this done. So there wasn't as much
Apprehension.
trauma and
Yes.
trauma and apprehension for her. I don't know if she suffered that once it started happening and it became a real thing, because I'm not inside her head, but like this was a wanted pregnancy that she was having this for, and hearing that and having to hold the sheet for her and like hearing
and
all
like
the
seeing them put the condom on top of the transvaginal ultrasound wand, and you're like, why are you putting a condom on that? That seems wrong.
It's just horrifying.
Safe sex is great sex. You better use the latex.
Now, if you have latex allergy, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and that was in 2012.
God.
Yeah.
Well.
Here we are 10 years later, and abortion is completely banned. Yay!
I really hope that, because a lot of our listeners are cis males who might never have had to deal with this or hearing about it before. Any of them who are, I hope you understand, in case you ever have a partner one day who needs to undergo one of these things. It's not all sunshine and raindrops, even if it's for something relatively positive.
And even if it's a wanted pregnancy, it's not something that's great to have to go through. Period. And guys, cis guys, y'all better step the hell up. Because I'm telling you, when they stop being able to prosecute us, people with uteruses, guess what? They're going to start coming after you too. And you think I'm crazy, and you're going to be like, what are you talking about, Mia? I'm talking about some shit that y'all want to talk about. I'm talking about some things like you're not married and you got somebody pregnant. They're gonna come after you too eventually.
They forced shotgun weddings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. I'm not laughing. I'm being serious.
I'm doing my part by being a hermit.
The only around me for long
as a
enough,
good Italian American son, the only woman that I'll ever truly love is my mother, and I will live here forever.
Like just while it's on my mind,
that is a joke. I want to leave this place. There's certain somebody that's listening.
Whoever you are, he's a good kid.
while this is on my mind, and while we're talking about the possible outcomes for people who can do the impregnating, and especially for cis men, can we stop anybody who wants to have their moment online talking about like forced vasectomies and things
Fucking
like
yes. Thank you.
that?
Thank you.
Because it's not, you know, this is not the Hunger Games future. This is not your fucking Handmaid's Tale future. This is a lived reality for a lot of people, a lot of Indigenous and Black people who had these reproductive rights taken away from them.
Yeah.
Yes. Forced anything is not good. I don't care who you put it on, you know, cis women, AFABs, trans people, non-binary people, I don't care. Anything forced is not good, and that includes vasectomies. So stop doing that shit.
Yes.
Period.
Please.
If you don't want it done to you, shut the fuck up and join us together.
Thank you.
Because I told you, they've come for us because we never got the ERA, and that's a whole other rant. I could go on for about an hour.
It's another episode for sure.
Yes, that is another episode on the Equal Rights Amendment. But if they're coming, come on. Look, they've already told you in these decisions what they're doing. When people tell you who they are, you should fucking listen. And if you don't listen, like I said, you need to go to like a hearing aid clinic or something. You've got problems. If you can't see what's coming, you need to go to someone who can give you glasses, because it's coming there straight for your face and it's going to knock you the hell out when it happens.
Yeah. So, white women, please learn history. So when you joke about
Yes.
mandatory vasectomies, just know that that's happened to Indigenous and Black men, brown men. They did that right up the road here. Tuskegee.
Do we want to talk about
Tuskegee-
the Tuskegee
that
Institute?
I really want to do a
Yes.
whole episode on that one day. But Tuskegee Institute, the syphilis experiment, like this stuff happened to people.
Happened.
So we need to, even if you're joking, like please stop.
It's not
Like the
fucking
whole-
funny.
The whole idea, like just because like rights that have been taken away, the answer to that is not to take more rights away.
Rights
The
away
answer to that
from
is
other people.
the right the
It's-
the answer is to, you know, let's work to get the rights back. Let's not be like, oh, these rights are taken, let's take other people's rights. Like that's not. Also, another thing, because I know I'm gonna say this for Kai and Mark. Okay, white women, stop painting your fucking hands red and putting it over your goddamn mouth.
Ah, jeez.
Okay,
Yeah.
that is for MMIW. Okay, I'm using my voice right now, my certain decibel level of bass in my voice for certain people to listen to me, because they'll listen to me over, unfortunately, my co-hosts. Don't fucking do that. Okay, the red hand is for MMIW, missing and murdered Indigenous women and non-binary and just people, right? So fucking stop that shit. Okay, get something else. Okay, stop taking other people's shit. I know it's deeply rooted in our white culture to take other people's shit. Stop taking other people's shit.
And as the other white lady on here, I'm going to tell you, if you are a white woman, stop taking Latinas people's shit.
Yeah.
Do not wear green. That doesn't belong to you.
Oh shit! I didn't know about that. What's that? No,
that
for real.
does not belong to you.
I was like,
I am going to call them out right now.
oh shit.
This, I will rise up for abortion. Nelson, you and I have talked about this. This is Bob Avakian,
Oh, that guy.
RevCom,
Ugh.
a bunch of white women taking Latinas' green colors and armbands and bandanas and co-opting them in the United States. If you're a white woman and I catch you with that shit, I'm going to whoop your ass. Because that is
Hell
not ours. That is not ours. That belongs to them. Do not co-opt someone else's culture and someone else's fight. Period. Do not do it. I've seen them doing it all over the United States. Do not do it. That is not yours to take.
Or you'll get a visit by the pink-haired devil lady, and she'll kill you.
I might strangle you. Or I will just annoy the shit out of you.
I was wondering what that was. It was like, what is this green? What is white people with this green stuff? What is this? But yeah, that's wild.
That is a South American culture that happened in Latin countries. I am not an expert on that. I know about it, but I don't want to speak as a white person for Latino communities, Latinx communities. So I'm just going to say, as a white person, do not co-opt the green bandanas or anything else, because that does not belong to you. And I will come to your house and whoop your ass if you do it. It is not yours. Do not do it.
Use live, laugh, love instead.
You know, one of these days we're gonna have like a mini-sode where I talk about my theory on how white American culture is vampiric. Like, we're just gonna have to have this talk one day.
It is absolutely 125 million% vampiric. You were exactly right. They take things from other people's cultures and they think it's cool and they use it for themselves. And that is not right.
Yeah, they took bowling shirts away from us and our food
and Hawaii
and
They
espresso.
took Hawaiian shirts away from you too.
So yeah, you know, fucking racist.
Okay,
Oh
Nelson,
my
here's
God.
your prompt after this show. You have to make the remember what they took from you meme, but it has to be fucking the shirts you were just talking about.
The Hawaiian
It's like
shirts.
I'll pick like specific things of like Italian American culture. Be like, this is what they took from you. Oh man, I was talking to somebody. I was like, I hate the fucking the racist fucking boogaloo jackasses and like fucking took Hawaiian shirts because it's so comfortable. And
It
now
was me you were talking about.
yeah, that was it. I was like, I can't wear a Hawaiian shirt now because I'm a
shirts
fat
anymore.
Yeah, I'm a fat
know.
white dude with a beard and I'm bald. And if I walk around in a Hawaiian shirt, people are gonna think I'm a fucking racist. I'm like, God damn it.
Because I have to do that to my husband because he likes bright colors and he's like, "Ooh, I like that shirt." I'm like, "No, you can't wear that, baby." And he's like, "Well, why can't I?" I'm like, "Because people might think you're racist." He's like, I'm not racist. I'm native." I'm like, "I know, but people don't know that. You can't do that."
He already looks like a cop. Anyway. Oh, well. Yeah. So at Dixieland, the proletariat believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and self-determination for all oppressed peoples. Make sure to click on our link tree in the show notes and find all of our social media. We are coming to you from the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement, Montgomery, Alabama, as well as sweet Georgia and jolly old England. We'd also like to recognize we're recording on land that's occupied and rightfully belongs to the Muskogee Nation and the Creek Nation. I also, on behalf of the Italian American community, I found out some very sad news while we were recording. Unfortunately, as we all know, James Caan did pass away earlier this week. He played Sonny in The Godfather, but on a personal, much sadder note, I found out that at the age of 79, Tony Sirico, aka Paulie Walnuts, has passed away this evening. So, on behalf of the Italian American community, we've lost two. Well, James Caan wasn't Italian, but we lost a great Italian actor in Tony Sirico and an Italian adjacent person, James Caan. They finally got Sonny at the Causeway, and Tony Sirico. Whoa.
Woo.
But yeah. Anyway. Mark, I actually I don't want to put you on the spot again because I did actually come up. I tweeted this out the other day, and it kind of was like based on what we say at the end of the episode. So if you don't mind, I'll take this one if you don't want to do it.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
White man
you've
coming
spoken so
for-
much. Just go ahead.
Y'all
Another
whoop
fucking
his ass.
stolen job.
You just had a weird monologue about your. All right, come on, let's hear it. What did Twitter tell you to say, Nelson?
This is me. Now I don't want to do it because it's supposed to be serious and sad.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know how you feel, Mark. I'm sorry.
That's why you. That's how you know how I feel. Okay. Every day is a nightmare.
Nelson gets roasted in the group chat. Definitely applies that to being both trans and indigenous. Definitely the same thing, Nelson.
Well, you know, if you want me to whip his ass for y'all.
Oh,
Mark's gonna see him next week. Okay,
yeah, I
so
do get to
Mark
hang
can
out with
do
Mark
it.
next
Yeah,
week.
Friday.
And then
yes,
I'm just
you gotta watch out.
and before I go to bed, I
Are you
listen.
coming here, Mark?
No, not this time. I have an
Okay.
appointment. Yeah.
But
Okay.
then I have a sound clip of Kai praising me from one of the episodes that Adam cut out, and I keep it. I listen to it whenever I feel bad. But anyway, and on a serious note, dark days are ahead, y'all. Please be safe. The creek is rising, and a lot of us can't swim. So if you're out there and you want to help, in the link tree, I have the Amazon wish list for the Powerhouse, and I have resources for National Abortion funds and a bunch of stuff. So click on the link tree if you want to help be able to donate to those groups. Mia, thanks again for coming on, and stay safe, y'all.